Tim, Rick as well. Tim is an amazing friend of our community, an amazing leader. A lot of you have worked with him in the past. We have personally. We can't say enough about his leadership skills, but just he's an amazing person overall, right? How he lives his life, what he teaches, how he presents himself, and how he shows up. It's really a great example for all of us to follow. And I'm always excited because he's always teaching us something new. So, Tim, I'm just going to pass it on to you, and I'm excited to hear about your topic for today.
Oh, thank you so much. What an incredibly nice thing to say. It's great to be here with, just to say thank you, Allie and Rick and Regina and the whole transformation experts community. It's just awesome to be here. Thank you. And I'm humbled by the words and praise that you just gave me. Thank you so much. Yeah, let's just go and jump into it. So it's good to be here. As I said, I'm Tim Cormier, the CEO of Cormier Executive Optimization Coaching and Consulting. And I believe that one person can truly make a difference in the world to be the change. And that's what I want to be able to do is empower you to be able to have the tools, the knowledge, and the ability to drive the change that we need to see in the world. Whether we're talking about, things like technology, like AI, which looked amazing. Regina, thank you for sharing that. That's so cool. And having conferences, but also being able to look at, people and be able to communicate with them and be able to be that influential person that you can be the change. And I want to make sure I give you the tools. The book we're going to be looking at today, we're actually going to be kind of doing a debrief of a quick overview of a book called Line of Sight. This is by Robert Corser. And if you're able to stay until the end, I am going to make sure that everyone who attends gets a free 45-minute coaching and they're able to have an assessment from Line of Sight. Now, David, you've already had this assessment before. If you want to take it again or be able to share this with somebody else at your work, you're able to get a free version of that too. Okay? And a couple things here I want to make sure that I'm able to put, because I'm going to be using my chat. I just put my link for my company in the chat. Is everybody able to see that? All right, so a couple things here. I do want to make sure that uh, this is interactive, and this is not me sitting here and lecturing. This is us working together and learning from us. There's one of me and many of you, and it's us making sure that we all work together. And so to go ahead and get us started, what I'd love to do is I'd love to have you put in the chat your name, where you're from, and if you have a car that has a funny name. Okay. So for instance, when I was growing up, my brothers and I, we shared a car and we called it the Coho. Why did we call it the Coho? We went fishing quite often and we ended up catching coho fish. And so we were saying that the car smelled like coho fish. So it was Coho. That was the name of our car, the Coho. So I'd love for you to put your name on. And by the way, I'm in Miami right now. So your name, where you're from, and if you have a car that had a funny name. And I can't be the only person who had a car with a funny name. All right, yours was the Batmobile. I love it. And the Rice Rocket. By the way, these are all pretty much joke cars, right? Like it really wasn't like the Batmobile, like really fancy, right?
I always get a black on black car and it isn't always super fancy. So I just call it the Batmobile to make myself feel better.
Nice, nice. Okay. And why was yours the Race Rocket? What's that about?
So mine is a high performance car. It's a Honda. It's a six-speed manual transmission, and they call those Japanese cars that go really, really fast, they call them rice rockets. So that became the
Ah,
name
okay.
of my car.
So yours was a fancy one. Okay.
It,
Yours
it's
was
it's it's a Honda Civic, but it's a six-speed. Go figure, manual, and yeah, 2.0.
nice, nice. Okay, you do okay, nice. But Michael, he's in Orlando. He's got a 27 Ford and 34 Ford. Wow, that's pretty awesome. Do they run?
Oh yeah, they're both hot rods.
Nice, nice. We'll have to see pictures. That's pretty cool. And Kaylee, you have the boat. Was that because it was small, or was it because it was really
It
really
was huge. I had an old El Camino. It was my first car when I was a teenager. It was awful.
El Camino? Oh, I love it. I
It was
love it.
huge. It was blue and white, and yeah, it matched your slide really nicely.
I love it. I love it. Okay, and Denny's, you had the Aladdin mat. What was that?
Yeah, that is the it's a Lincoln 2019, and I work at Disney, so this like it rose like a Aladdin mat, very smooth, like flying every time.
Wow, wow. That's awesome. That's so cool. And so Dan, he's in Michigan there, and no name, but his car goes 200 miles an hour. What?
with
Have
a
you taken it
warranty.
200, or can it go?
Pardon me?
Did you ever take it to 200 miles an hour?
I have not.
But it can go.
Yes, it can.
Wow, that is awesome. Well, I like to set the tone here to make sure that we all get to know each other and are free to share information, because this is what I want to make sure is that we're, again, collaborating. What I'm going to be talking about, a couple different things, as I said, translating vision into actionable strategy. So it's not just this lofty idea. It's really about how do we take our mission, our vision, and our values and put them into action to ensure that we get results. And then taking those ideas like the strategy and execution and really making sure that you have those elements for planning for your performance, that you're getting engagement, that you have a communication tool as a leadership team to make sure that you're bridging those strategy and execution. And let's face it, there are going to be barriers. There are barriers to getting things uh, accomplished, and let's make sure we identify them. And how do we overcome those barriers? Ensure that there's ownership, accountability, make sure that we have our initiatives that they're aligned and moving forward, and really look at you're measuring what matters. So there's really those 2, 3 things that every organization should be doing that will help drive support, getting that execution and the strategy done. And let's face it, leadership can happen at any level. It doesn't matter where you are in the organization, whether you have a leadership title or not, you still can help drive strategy, drive execution, and make the results happen. That's what we're going to be talking about today, that one person can make a huge difference. So I'd like to go ahead and have you put this in chat. What percentage of change initiatives are considered successful? This is kind of the flip side, because quite often I hear people saying, how often do change initiatives fail? I'm putting this in the positive. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you can put it in the chat here. How many, what percentage do you think are successful, that you're getting the goals, your results, you're seeing the ROI, you're hitting all of those key objectives, all those measurables that whenever we do a change initiative? And Michael, love those cars pictures, man. That's really cool. Thank you for putting that in there. All right. I'm seeing a common theme here. 30%, 30%, 20 to 30, 50%. Nice. Interestingly enough, 30%. Yeah. So why don't we see 100%? Why don't you say, 100% of our change initiatives are successful. We're always hitting our goals. So stated another way is that 70%, 50%, 80% of our change initiatives fail. Why are we not having 100% success? I'd love to hear some of your thoughts. If you can put that in the chat. Why do you think strategy often fails? Why do you have 30%, 50%, 20%? Yeah, David, tell us more about that.
So, as humans, we really don't like change. Comfort is in repetitive, um, you know, show up to work the same time of day to the same place. Routine is comforting, and it's really hard for most people to go through change. It causes relearning. You're building new neural pathways in the brain. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just uncomfortable for many people.
It is, and there's a neuroscience behind change, which I'm really glad you're tapping into. That's excellent. Thank you so much. Bijan, you've got a couple responses there. Let's lean into those. Tell us more about those, please.
Yeah, a lot of times I've seen a lot of these things that I mentioned show up, but one of the ones I've seen, or a couple of the ones I've seen most often is leaders aren't fully behind the change, where one leader will get up and say, "This is what we need to do," and then another leader behind the curtain or behind closed doors will say to their own team, like, "Yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll be okay." I think lack of skills or resources or incentives are another big one. And I think the other one that I've seen occur very, very often is people just try and take a boil the ocean approach. They say, this is the change we need to make and expect everyone to be on board overnight and don't actually dedicate time and commitment to the change process that needs to take place in order to make that change successful.
Love it. Love what you're saying. Thank you so much. Love it. And that's what we're talking about because it is a strategy to be able to ensure you're changing something to make sure that strategy is being executed and being achieved. All those things you're talking about, the communication, the incentives, making sure there's the buy-in. And then status is stable. Tell us more about that, Michael.
So one of the challenges I think I've seen in business has been, whatever the current status is like a big flat table, and it's very stable. And then you're trying to make change, right? So we're stacking cards on top of the table, trying to make the new level. And what I've seen is everybody's much more comfortable where the table was. And sometimes it's really hard to get that to move, even when the benefit is good. I think about, I can raise my hand. How many times have you started an exercise routine? This time I'm going to stick with it. I don't want to have somebody count how many times I've done that in my entire life. Even though I feel better, I look better, my health is better, and then I fall off, and then I have to get back on it. So I think sometimes it's just the current status, even if it's uncomfortable, is stable. It's known.
Yeah.
And
And
the
you're hitting
unknown
on
is a challenge.
something that leaders need to make sure that they're continuing reinforcing, having that communication, showing what we've done, building upon it, measuring it, having that dashboard, having the right metrics in place. Absolutely. Love what you're saying there. And then Denny's, build upon that. People build what they think, not what the final users actually need. So that sounds like some design thinking going on in there.
Yeah, there are many cases where companies have many ideas, but they don't validate it first with the market, and they get in love with something that they have in mind, and they don't actually have like the MVP concept very clear, and they start dedicating resources, time to build thing, and when they release it to the market, the result is not what they expect. Or even sometimes they build the MVP, we get a good feedback from final users, but they don't spend more time to release the actual final product to them. So it's like a little gap between what they think and what the market actually needs.
I love what you're saying, Denny's, because that's what we want to be able to do is as a leader to be able to fill in those gaps and to identify if there is a gap, how do we close this and really drive it and make sure it is successful. I would love for every one of you to say 100% of our strategy initiatives, our change, things that we're working on, were successful because we did these items. But yeah, typically the standard idea here is that 70% of strategies fail. There's lots of different research going on this, whether it's Fortune, whether it's Harvard Business Review. Typically, that's the standard is that 70%, or stated another way, 30% are successful. And that's what we're leaning into. What did those 30% do that were different? And there are some very prescriptive things to do. But just as you were saying here, each one of you, there's common breakdowns, whether we're talking alignment, that we're not on the same page. Hey, Marcelo, great to see you, brother. Yeah, great to see you. There's no ownership. There isn't the accountability. We might have a misallocation of resources. Where are we putting our budget? Do we have our ideas on the right page? So that's what we're going to be looking at here. I'm a huge fan of quotes, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. That vision without execution is hallucination. So welcome, Marcelo. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What does this mean to you when you hear vision without execution is hallucination? What does that mean to you?
Well, way to put me on the spot, Tim. Um, yeah. Um, I think another way of saying that is faith without works is nothing. Simply
Love it.
stated, not to get biblical with everybody, but faith without works means nothing.
Yeah, it takes work. It takes work to get things done. Getting that alignment, that ownership, that accountability, the resources. We're focusing on the 2 to 3 things that will really drive those right behaviors. And Marcelo, I'm sorry for putting you on the spot, but it's awesome to see you. Thank you so much. Yeah, and we've used these words, strategy and framework. I'd like to define these real quick. That strategy. And this is from the book, how this is being defined here from Robert Corser. What is strategy? That strategy, quite simply, is a set of guiding principles that, when communicated clearly and adopted widely, provides a basis for decision making across the organization. It really is that simple. That's making sure you have those common principles, people understand it, we're directionally aligned, we're on the same page. So if you look at a framework for making that in place, that's ensuring that you have this vision. How do we make this vision come to life? Ensuring that there's alignment across the division, across our teams. There's accountability to ensure that we get that, measure those results, and then continue to drive that vision. That's the framework that'll keep it going. That's the strategy in action. It's that simple. By the way, why does this sound difficult? This sounds so easy, but why is this difficult? If we know this is how it'll work, why does this make it difficult? I'm seeing everybody's head down, getting ready to type. Oh, thank you, Marcelo. It's okay. Everyone can talk, though. It's okay.
Something that I have seen in different projects is like they release it, but there is a gap between what they release and what the users think. So sometimes that's why the metrics are very important to know the usage, to know the level of failure, to know what is the level of acceptance by the final stakeholders. And that way, and like we have always said in Agile, we can improve only if we are able to measure it. So that's where we can analyze the result and do the accountability to decide what is the next step, what is the module that the people use most, with their apply A/B testing, and decide what is the best option for final users. So those kind of strategy are missing in many companies.
Love it. And so, Dennis, I think you saw my next slide that we're going to be talking about measurements. That is so huge. You're onto something there. I love it. And Bijan, if I can have you go ahead and build upon it, because I see that you got something going on there.
Yeah, I think vision can be really hard to communicate in a way that's inspiring and gets people to really understand what that vision is and why it's important. I think with alignment's individualized, right? Like you can't just say, "Hey, here's the vision," and assume that everyone's 100% aligned. Incentives are so individualized and our motivators are so individualized that it takes a lot of time, and that's where your middle level of management becomes so valuable in building that individualized motivation. And then people are very naturally risk averse. Taking accountability is taking a risk because you're saying, I'm going to own the result and I'm going to be accountable for what happens here. And it's much easier to just say, no, I'm just going to do what I'm told. And if something goes wrong, then it's what you told me to do was wrong, not what I took accountability and ownership for was wrong. So that's where I see a lot of time people will avoid accountability because they don't want to take that risk or kind of put their head on the chopping block, so to speak.
Love it and love it. And again, that's where making sure there's the cult because these all go together. What type of culture are we? Are we having a culture to inspire risk? That risk is a learning process that we're going to use it, that if something did go wrong, that we're going to grow, learn, and become better. And we're saying, oh my gosh, let's bring this out because this is something that we can improve upon. Or is it, hey, it's not my fault. Hey, it's their fault. It's Denny's fault. It's Vajan's fault, not mine. I love what you're saying. So powerful. Yeah, and then I love where you're going with this, Marcelo, saying what is actually intended and what does that intent look like? The devil's in the details. Do we all understand what that will look like? And are we on the same page? And that's when we're looking at these. These are your 5 key strategies for execution. This is where when you do a deep dive into all 5 of these, if you do these 5 well, you will be in that 30% group of getting a change in strategy coming into life. So strategic understanding right up front. Do the employees in the company understand the strategy? Is it meaningful to them? Do they see how it relates to them? Do they understand how they're different from the competitors, and how their company is different? And do they see where they fit in? That's step 1 right up front is understanding your strategic understanding. Do they know this? And this is a wonderful thing to say, asking your team, if you're a people leader right now, asking your team, do they understand what the strategy of the organization is? And again, where it fits in, how do they work together? When you look at your leadership team, are the leaders communicating strategy? It's funny because I'll see leaders many times talking about tasks, talking about updates. Those are important, but do people realize where those tasks and those updates align to the strategy? And do the leaders themselves see themselves as change agents, that they're helping drive and getting that buy-in? And here's the thing, that credibility. When you hear leadership credibility, David, I'm curious, what does that mean to you when you hear, what about leadership's credibility? What does that mean to you? Leadership credibility.
Do we trust our leaders? Do we believe in what they say? Do they, yeah, trust?
Love it. Yeah, trust is such a huge piece. Do they say what they're going to do? How many times have people said, you know what, I'm just going to sit back and see what happens. See if they really think this is part of it. We're going to do this, and do they trust what the leader is saying? Love it. The credibility is huge. And by the way, the less a change gets, how do I say this? The more we change or put different change initiatives along the way and may not and continually fail or not get the results, what is happening to the leader's credibility? The more we change and not get the results, what's happening to the leader's credibility?
Diminishing.
Absolutely. And that's where we literally want to look at and say, I want to be a credible leader and do what I say I'm going to do. Yeah. And then I love this. This is what Denny's was just saying a second ago. Does the company measure the things that really matter? Are they keeping metrics? Are we focusing on the right work? And this is a powerful one. We're going to look at this in a moment a little deeper, but are our budgets aligned with strategy? So those of you in the project management space, how often do you hear, for this project, what's the ROI? How often is that part of your conversation?
Almost all the time.
Why?
Well, why would you invest in something that doesn't have a return?
Love it. I want
From a business owner standpoint, why am I putting effort, money, resources, and time behind something that doesn't have a benefit for the business?
Yeah.
If you're going to start at that point, you might as well just skip. Your strategic understanding is terrible, so start over.
Yes. Love it. Love it. Because we're going to do a deeper dive into that in a second here. So I just want to kind of, I like that you said all the time. Thank you so much. And Marcelo, I think you're getting back into credibility when we're talking about it. It does not just diminish, it may well erode, considering that in the light of trust, how difficult is to rebuild trust once the trust has been eroded? Can I trust this person and their decisions? That's some really powerful language that you're using there. Tell us more about that.
Sure. I mean, one of the things that I learned early on as a product owner is to over communicate my intent and over communicate the why. Why is it that this is a sound decision on how we should carry out what our plan is over this other alternative? Why have we arrived at this decision? And part of that goes into the fact that even before you arrive at that, all too often strategic decisions are incomplete. Okay? They're incomplete. And the reason I say that is because, let's say that we're all an organization. As a senior leader, I have to recognize, and I'm going to quote Benjamin Franklin, okay, from the time where they were working on the Declaration of Independence. He kind of, shamed the rest of the delegates into signing the Declaration of Independence and working on it. And he basically told them, say, hey, you guys are really smart, but you know, can we not doubt our own infallibility in putting this thing together where we're going to tell, King George where to get off? What he was telling them is like, look, we've put our collective intelligence into this and come up with an idea called democracy from representation. Okay? But the fact is that all too often when we have these strategies, they're cooked up in the incubator of our C-suite without taking sufficient input from outside of it, from availing ourselves of the brain power of the rest of our people. We're already paying them a salary. We're already paying them to give us their input. We should take it upon ourselves to consider what can they contribute to these decisions that impact us all. Okay?
I love the context that you're giving, Marcelo, because that's great. You're looking at that's part of the culture. And again, this is part of strategy. Anyone can be part of this.
Yep.
Everybody in the organization can have their fingerprint on the strategy. So it doesn't have to be this big complex thing. It really is about having the credibility, making sure we're getting buy-in, focusing on the right things. And Brian, Brajan, we're going to touch on what you just said a second ago here, because this is where these ideas go together, that balance metrics and activities and structures, so that not only are you focusing on measuring the right things, but then we're doing the right things that will drive those metrics. And so this is where do the employees focus their time, energy, and effort on the right things? Yeah. Do they know what really matters? Have you ever felt busy but not productive? Are we working on the right things that will drive our strategy, drive meaningful work? Are we using strategy to make choices in our daily decisions? This, by the way, this can be done at any level. Hey, are we being very strategic in how we're doing this? And is there too much best practice, too much emphasis on best practices? I know we've had this where I've worked in companies where people have said, hey, this is what, Google is doing. Hey, this is what Amazon is doing. That's wonderful. That might work very well there, but our company might be a little bit different. Can we glean something from that? Can we learn ideas? Absolutely. But can we replicate it exactly? Not the same. Making sure that we personalize this. So I want to make sure that I set the table for that real quick. And so, Bijan, tell me more when you say you're measuring everything. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think that key word in the metrics is balance metrics, right? It's a balance of time, and it's really focusing in on a few key metrics that are indicators of progress and indicators of success. And I've always, one of the big questions I'll ask leaders in their role and even employees is how much time are you focused on reporting and presenting on metrics? And in some roles, I've seen people say like 70% to 80% of my time is spent on getting those numbers together, putting them into a pretty PowerPoint, and then presenting it up to leaders on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis. And my advice to them in that situation is to narrow your focus on a few metrics that actually truly matter and will truly show, am I making progress and am I hitting the outcomes I'm looking for? And then focus on action instead, because with all that time spent on just trying to get the information and the data, put it into a pretty PowerPoint presentation, then present it up, and then repeat the process, rinse and repeat over and over, you're missing huge opportunities to truly impact change and to truly take action towards the strategies and outcomes that you're trying to reach and achieve.
Excellent. And that's where, like Marcelo was just saying, are we tapping into our employee base and getting their feedback, or are they just worried about running a report that we know that we do each month? Instead of saying, can we tap into their knowledge and their information to drive the right results? Love it. And then, Denny's, tell us more about this. Get minimal to generate maximum value. 20% equals greater than or less than greater than 80% value. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, the idea is that to use the Pareto is like with the small amount of data or metrics, we can generate the biggest value for the project. For example, usually we don't have many companies use the strategy of sending email or surveys to users, but we have to be transparent. So when 1,000 of guests in a resort receive a survey, only 10 of them complete it. So the rest we don't know. So the metric is like the first hand information that we get from final users. And that way, if we have multiple modules working, we can decide which of them people are using most, and we focus on that one to increase the sales, to repeat, to apply corresponding promotions, something like that. It's like it's an enhancement of the vision for the next step for the business to do. So that way, product owners and product manager can make the right decision what is the next stage of the project and what is the actual focus, where we assign the corresponding resources such as effort, time, budget. And we that one that people are not using too much, you know what? Let's deprecate it. Let's focus on what is actually generating value for themselves.
Love it. And are we focusing on the things that really matter? Yeah, that's right up there and getting the input. Love what you're saying. Thank you. And then this one is what's near and dear to my heart. This is what I've worked on my entire career. It's making sure we have that human capital, the talent management strategy, ensuring that we have the organizational design, the talent architecture, however you want to call it. Do we have the right people with the right skill sets? Is there alignment between our talent management efforts and the company's strategy? Do people understand that? And is that knowledge being shared? And I'd love to hear this from you. How often do you know if you're, let me just ask a quick question. How many of you know if your organization has a talent management strategy? Does anyone know if they have one? And then how does that help drive the strategy? And so this is not something that should just be known for your C-suite. You know, the whole idea of succession planning, the whole idea of how are we building out our AI? Why are we going into AI? Why are we moving out into this direction? That is the strategy behind it. Do we have the right talent? Do we have the right people with the right skill set? And ensuring that everybody knows it. Our pay structure. Do we understand how we're paying our employees? And there is a reason and theory behind that. Do people understand that? This should not be some sort of clandestine information. It should be shared. By the way, what happens if you don't know if you have a talent management strategy? What happens if you don't know? You
Maybe you
can't.
should create one and present it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love what you're saying there, Vijan, that then you can't achieve it. Exactly. This is the process. If you want to make sure you're executing on your strategy, it starts with having that understanding. Do people understand we have one? Are our leaders walking the walk and talking the talk? Do we have the right metrics? Are we measuring it? Do we have the activities in place where people understand that they're doing the right things that matter? And do we have our employees who are helping support and drive that? This is what the 30% of organizations, when there's a change initiative, are doing well. It's these five things. It's making sure that you double down on each one of these. Now, I want to kind of hit a couple of key things here that I think each one of you kind of talked about a little bit, but I think it's so important to ensure that we align our budgets, our people, and our strategy. That's the trifecta. The people, the processes that we're doing, and the money that we're spending, and we're helping drive the strategy and executing and getting the results. So when I say to you, who have I not picked on here? Who have I not called here? Michael, with your fast car here, that budgets reflect strategy and action. Tell us what does this mean to you? Because I'd love for you to be able to bring this to one of your meetings and be able to talk about this. When you hear budgets reflect strategy and action, what does that mean to you?
Um, I'm trying to relate that back to when I used to work in bigger companies. Um, one of the challenges I would see coming down was would we have a big strategy change? We're going to have this change implementation, and then when you asked about a budget and the budget was zero, or we're not changing anything, or we'll see about how that aligns later. And to me, that says there's no commitment there, right? We're going to see, well, maybe if you guys can actually pull something off, then we'll think about actually changing. That really wasn't strategy, so it's a little bit of put your money where your mouth is. It also goes back to say is you put your money where things are important. If you're going to say this is an important strategy, but we're putting no money behind it, the message I'm getting is it's really not very important.
Yeah, love it. That's such a powerful message. Have you ever heard this before? Do more with less?
Oh, absolutely.
And so there
And
needs to
that's
be a
key. That's being seen as, oh, that's what's important. Like, okay, there's a point of efficiency, right? We want to be efficient. Nobody wants to waste money. Nobody wants to waste time. Nobody wants to waste people. So there's an important of efficiency, but there's also a point where you say, you're driving people into the ground because you're asking them to do more than they're capable of. One of the things I've always found with teams is a team can operate at 130% for a short period of time for a very specific goal and get that done. But I think sometimes what happens is people see that your team can perform at 130%, and then they go, well, that's the new normal. Well, no, it's not. Everybody can push hard for a period of time to a task, to a goal that gets done, and then they get an opportunity to shift back into normal. And I think I've seen too often what happens is people go, well, you were capable of doing that before, so that's the new 100%. And then they do it again and again and again, and you end up with people saying, I'm just not willing to do this.
Yeah, and that's where you can get the burnout, where the reward for everybody has this at your organization. You want to get this done, go to Regina. You want to get this done, go to Allie. There's the people like that they want to get it done, and so what's the reward for them? You keep getting more and more work, but eventually, what's going to happen to them?
They'll move on.
They will move on, because they're feeling that's my reward for being a good employee is I get more and more work. And then yes. And Marcelo, we're going to build upon what you said in 2 seconds here, okay? Because I want you to build upon that. I love where you're going with it. So I want you to think about this for a second. And I want to hear from each of you on your thoughts. What's the difference between an aligned and misaligned budget? Okay, I want you to think about that, and I want to hear from each of you your responses. And I want to go ahead and give an example. I went to Walmart the other day, love Walmart, and I got that cart. Yes, that cart with this wheel. Okay. Has anyone ever had that? The cart with the wheel that goes like this. The wheels were not aligned. All right. So, what was my shopping experience like? My shopping experience, I wasn't thinking about the milk. I wasn't thinking about, do I need to buy more razors? I was thinking about how do I move this thing? Are there different ways I can do this? How can I quickly get out of here? It was not aligned. It was a miserable experience. And I ended up not getting everything that I wanted. Um, and then when I said to people, I said, hey, you know what? This cart is not working. Guess what the Walmart people did? They took it and they put it right back into the line of carts. And so then I started thinking, well, they don't care about the customer experience. They really could care less about it, about who we are. And so I just thought about that with budgets and alignment, that if they're not aligned and we're not on the same page, it's a roadblock everywhere we're staying. Yeah. Uh, yes, Kaylee, tell us more about that. It's the grocery store equivalent of stepping on a Lego brick. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's just it's painful, it's uncomfortable, it lasts your entire time you're there. It's not a good thing.
Yeah, it's not a
And
good thing.
the fact that they wouldn't address and take that card out of, out of circuit, it's not as if they have a shortage of cards.
Well, and that's like what Michael is saying right now when he said a second ago, where he said, look, let's put our money where our mouth is. We're saying we're going to work on this, but where is the budget? We can do the work. We have the skill set. Is there a budget to help support and drive this? So it's just so huge. Um, you got something pretty intense going on here, Marcelo. Tell us about this, because trust and risk and driving budget, that's huge. Tell us more about it.
Well, that's one of those life lessons sort of things that you know as you progress in your career, you just learn things about how business operates. And that's one of the things that I learned, 15, 16 years ago, that budget is by and large based on a risk tolerance factor. And sometimes there's numbers behind it. Sometimes there's just, faith in Tim. Do we think he's got the discipline to do right by our money? And can we put faith in that budget behind his ability to execute? you know and maybe they don't give you everything, but you know what, let's give him something. Let's give him something and see what he does with it. you know and and it's one of those things that as you progress in your career, you learn along the way. You know what they say, that some people think that trust is given and some people think that is earned. Budget is earned. It's not given to you. But budget is earned by and
Words
large.
of words of wisdom here. Budget is earned.
Yeah. But budget is earned. Budget is earned. Yeah.
I'm gonna steal that if you don't mind. I really like that a lot.
Hey, I did look, a lot of this stuff I didn't invent. I learned along the way by a lot of folks that are a lot smarter than me. That's just the reality of it, Tim. You
Nice,
know,
nice. No, thank you for sharing. That's a true leader and communicator, passing that knowledge on. Yeah, so I'd like to hear from everybody here. What's the difference between an aligned and misaligned budget? And I'd love to hear about some experiences that you've had where you've had aligned budgets, and I'd love to hear where there was misaligned. You can either put it in the chat or you can come off of mute. It's funny, it says there are 15 people here, but I don't see all 15. I only see a couple people. Who's KW? KW? All right, how about William? William or William? What's the difference between an aligned and a misaligned budget? And I don't know, William, are you trying to speak? Because I see you came off mute. How about you, Lanis?
Hello.
Yes.
But for me, an ally budget need to be in the same page to the strategy. You need to define what is your strategy and what is your main goal, and after that, you need to define what is your budget. If the budget it doesn't matter or it doesn't align with your strategy, it's a misaligned budget.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah. So does this sound, thank you so much for saying that. And does this sound familiar to anybody? That you go to your CFO and say, hey, we want to work on this. We're helping drive. This is what our sales and marketing team is working on. This is an initiative that we want to make sure we're doing. And we go to the CFO. How do we know the CFO is aligned and not a pushover and not a blocker? How do we know if the CFO is aligned, not a pushover, or not a blocker? Yeah, reevaluate the project strategic goals. Some need to be put on the back burner. The customer may not get the expected results. Kaylee, tell us more, please.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have the funds there to meet your team's needs to deliver, then you're going to have problems. Either team members are getting burnt out and working well beyond their capacity, or something else is getting shoved aside and being reappropriated, which is never good because somebody's getting the raw end of the deal there. Yeah, but it causes lots of problems. You really need to understand what the strategy is, what the expectations are, have the correct people in place, and the money to support the tools, the resources, whatever it may be, the vendor support that you need to deliver that strategic goal.
Yeah, I love what you're saying there. And that's, so making sure the money is there to help support it. Who is there? Who can help? Who can ensure that the CFO is not seen as a blocker or a pushover, but is seen as a partner in the process? Who can do that? Who can ensure that the CFO and the finance team and who has the funds is seen as a business partner, not as a blocker?
I think that can come from many people within the organization. And it's about the relationships and having that vision and providing the clarity of the what and the why and the how, so they get that vision too. So I think your leadership has to be in lockstep. You have to have an advocate that can reach out to those team members and make the case for your project. And it could be anyone. It could be it doesn't have to be an HR leader. It could be somebody that just has that presence and that, commitment and understanding and can speak to that vision.
Yeah. And that's why I love what you're saying, is that it really is anybody can do that. Anybody can step up to have that conversation to ensure that we have the right understanding to make sure that there's alignment to help drive that strategy. Because too often we talk about strategy, but we don't talk about the execution, how to get things done, and we need input from everybody. That's the culture. The leaders making sure they're communicating it, making sure they have that strategic vision, are that change agent, that we're focusing on the right metrics and measuring it. We have the right activities in place, that we're focusing on what matters, and then ensuring, yes, communicate, and ensuring that our teams have the right knowledge, skills, and ability to help drive that strategy. It's huge. And so here is the call to action that I want for everybody here, is that, when you start thinking about this, what are some key things to make sure that we can do with our teams right up front? Test for understanding with your team. How well does your team understand your org strategy? This is something by the way, where could you test this? If I say to you, hey, Denny's, I want you to make sure that you test with your team their understanding of the strategy. Where could you do this? Where could this happen? Denny's, where do you think we could do that to test the team for their knowledge of the strategy?
So when you mention the team, also the technical part of the team, or the whole Scrum team from developers, Scrum Master, product owner, and stakeholders? Everyone should
Yes.
sign.
The answer is yes.
Okay, let's go from the bottom to the top. So if we go to the development team, that is the most important foundation of any team, because if they don't build, the product owner might have an idea, but if they don't have the right team, they cannot build something. And the team, if they don't have like a good product owner aligned with the business strategy, they cannot build anything. So they have to work together. So if they have like a cross-functional team, and the product business say, okay, if we have these different modules to build, let's focus on the module with highest value that can generate a better ROI, I mean return of investment, because that will generate income to the business, the income that we are going to invest inside the team to continue paying salary, running risk, mitigating any specific situation that happened. The project itself is able to maintain and sustain and keep alive the team when they releases. So that's the goal. Is like, what is the highest value? Go inside the team development, cross-functional team, develop those modules, product owner, release it, present it to stakeholder, present it to managers, the financial manager, they like it a lot. And they said, you know what? We expect based on the metrics, so this might generate an income from this period of time, and this might increase in the next projection of economy projection for the next 6 months or 1 year, and we expect to have this return of investment. So let's make it happen, and that will sustain the team itself.
Love it. And when I said yes, because it really is everybody, just like you're saying, communicate it. It can be in a team meeting. It can be in a one-on-one, can be in an email. The main thing is communicate with your team. Love what you're saying there. Marcelo, tell us more about this. How do your product vision goals map back to the organization's strategy? And you don't know if a product owner would be able to answer that. Sounds like you've got some more information there.
Yeah, it's battle scars, Tim. Yeah. Well, because one of the things that I learned is, upper management has its strategic goals, and if they're communicating them, you need to respond to them. You need to be able to turn around and express back to those people that are working with you, some of them who might report to you, some of them who might not, of what those things are and what it means to them. And sometimes those expressions, however they word them, you know, don't don't directly don't directly map to the language of the people that are working on the products that you're working on. And you as a product owner, product manager, have to act as a translator and make it expressible in the language of the listener. Okay, so I'm a systems engineer. What the hell does this mean to me?
Yeah.
And you have to figure out how to map what someone from the C-suite is conveying to you as a product owner or product manager into someone who's leading your engineering efforts or your
100%.
your security efforts. Okay? They are talking different dialects of English, is how I used to say it. Okay? And you have to be able to act as an interpreter between those different dialects of English or
That's
Spanish
pretty
or
powerful.
whatever the base language you are. So as a product owner, you have to be able to turn around and say, oh, okay, so now we're focusing on this particular objective as an organization. Okay, that means I need to change my product goals to focus on this instead.
Yeah. Love it. Excellent. And again, whether you're an engineer, you're an analyst, whomever it
Correct.
may be, everybody needs to be
Correct.
able to see how they align
Correct.
to it. Love what you're
Uh,
saying.
yeah, you have to be able to find a way of working with them to speak in their dialect of English.
Yeah, their dialect. Excellent. Excellent. And then Kaylee saying that it can be an icebreaker. Absolutely. A retrospective planning session. That's the idea, is being very mindful in what you're doing and being able to ask that. Love it there. Yeah, Dan, tell us about this. What tell us what you have. You ask a very simple question. Dan, tell us about that.
I, one of the things that we used to do is when we got together as a team, ask them a simple question. Why do our best customers buy from us versus our competition? Have them write it down in a sentence or two, gather them, share the results, and see if you have alignment or not.
Love it. Those are all the different ways that you can test for understanding with your team. The value for that is that's step one. That's making sure we're able to understand, why are we doing this? What are we trying to accomplish? And you're able to execute and get the results that you want. And this is when you the next one is tie your results directly to the strategic goals. Ensure that you have that budget. You don't have that wiggly wheel there. Making sure you have their budget and that people have the right skills to be able to help drive that strategy, tying your budget. So, David, I'm gonna ask you a question here. When should we ensure we're tying our budget to our initiative? When do we need to start having those conversations, and why? David, are you on mute? Bajan, I'll go ahead and ask you. When do we start having those questions of aligning our budget to a strategy? When do we start having those conversations?
As early as possible. Honestly, I'd like to try to have those conversations before the strategy is even defined to make sure it's realistic and tangible and something that can actually be achieved.
What happens if we don't?
You can come up with a strategy or goal or outcome that is impossible to achieve. And that's where a lot of people start to get frustrated, burnt out, feeling of exhaustion, hopeless. And that can be a huge driver of turnover or becoming checked out or disengaged in their work and their roles.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah. And then Denny's, you fit into this next one right here about building accountability into your weekly conversations. That as a leader, we want to make sure that we're having this conversation consistently, clearly, actionably communicating strategy again and again, having that visibility. I love this. Sprint boards, backlog, process board, delivery map, roadmaps, having it out there so we're aligned. Hey, this is where we are on the strategy. Are we driving? Are we on track? And who's accountable for it? And accountability can also be a very positive word. We're accountable for achieving it. It doesn't have to be necessarily an accountability meaning it's negative. Accountability can be this is something that was done well. Yeah, I love that. I love what you're saying. Yeah, not a Gantt chart. Good call out there. And then be that credible leader. Do what you say you're going to do. Manage that change, that you are going to communicate what's happening and you're going to make sure it's happening. And you are that person who is credible, that people can depend on you. And notice when I say credible leader, it doesn't have to mean that you have a title. It's taking that leadership role to be accountable to make things happen. Those are 4 easy steps that anybody in the organization can do. Test for understanding for the strategy, ensuring that the resources are tied to the strategic goals, be accountable for what you're doing, and being that credible leader. Say what you're going to do. Anyone can do those actions right up front. Now, here is where the rubber meets the road. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Strategy succeeds when everyone sees that line of sight to make sure that we're all on the same page here. Your call to action, I'd love to hear, what are you going to do with all this information? You've invested in yourself for the last hour and a half. I'd love to hear from everybody here, what's one thing you're going to do with this information? So if all of a sudden somebody goes to you and says, hey, I hear you went to see went to this transformation experts presentation by some bald guy. What did you learn and how are you going to apply it? Love to hear your commitment. What's one thing that each one of you are going to do with this information? Yes, you do. You do still have hair. Dan, can you put the link to the line of sight website into the chat, please? I have a bar up here that's blocking. I want to be accountable for it, but I can't see it. It's blocking me. Am I doing all I can do to help? Excellent. Thank you, Dan. The line of sight. Thank you. Share it with your manager and ask about their current strategy messaging so we can incorporate into a newsletter. Love it. Ensure that resources are clearly aligned in support of the strategy. Excellent. Marcelo, two most powerful words on a manager. I was incorrect. I made a mistake. How can we fix it? Love it. Be accountable. Yeah, budget aligned with the vision. Very cool. All right. So because each one of you stayed here, this is my contact information. Each one of you can contact me to have a 45-minute free coaching session. And during that session, I'm going to work with you to give you a free line of sight strategy assessment that you can work with your team. You can look at you and see where am I on the knowing strategy and how can I communicate with that team. And you'll, as I said, you have a free 45-minute coaching session with me. Here's all my information. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to me either through email. You can call me. I believe I put my website in there earlier. Here's my website. All right. Any questions, comments, clarifying thoughts here? Anything in last moment? Because I want to be respectful of your time. Dan, I've got you on. Yeah.
I'm a first timer. Absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. Tim, you're a pro.
Thank you, Dan. And Dan has been my mentor and coach on this. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Your support. You've been outstanding in this. Thank you. And again, I want to say, and so Dan, hopefully you can attend these more often. Regina and Rick run these every week, and they have all different types of speakers come in. It's just awesome. They are really helping give people that human capital side, giving people the tools and resources, and they're doing it at no cost. And they just have such a wonderful worldwide network. I hope everybody, shares this with all of their friends and their coworkers and so forth. And Bijan, I know this is your first time too. Thank you so much for showing up, man. Just can't say it enough. All right, Regina, I will hand it over to you.
No, amazing. This was very good. We've got amazing interaction. Thank you for everybody that showed up. Like Tim was saying, we've got amazing speakers lined up for this month. I think if Ali is still there on the line, I can't see her very well, but if she can put the links on the chat, follow us. I know that the picture that was taken at the beginning, Ali usually puts it in the on the chat so that you guys can like it. It's on LinkedIn. It's a post on LinkedIn. Let me see if she had put it already. She might have lost her connection. Oh, there she is. Ali's there. Hey, Ali. Ali. I know sometimes Ali's, by the way, is in the Philippines, so her time box is a little different than ours for sure. But let me see if she had the opportunity to post a LinkedIn. If you guys could like it, follow us, and just kind of put some great comments there for Tim. Just thanking him for his amazing evening that he spent with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this opportunity. Great to meet everybody. And again, it's open to everybody. 45 minutes of free coaching. Looking forward to it.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Let me put the link on the
Thank
chat.
you.
Thank you.
I
Let me put
did.
the link on the chat for
I
a free
did.
events page. Oh, you did, Ali? Okay.
I can resend all the links that I sent.
Yeah, so there's the LinkedIn. If you guys could like it, please. That's the one thing we ask. And tag Tim, put comments there for him as well. That'll help us all out a lot. And then share with your friends. And then Ali's gonna put the links to the TE website. We've got where it says free events. You can see all of the upcoming topics for next week and the week after. Please save it as your favorite, and we hope to see you next week.